For years and years and years, my health and my body and the way that I felt about myself was an afterthought. And I struggled with my body image since a very young age. I mean, I grew up as the fat kid. I went through elementary school and middle school as the fat kid. And it finally got to a point in high school where I was willing to try any quick fix or any hack or anything to get my body where I wanted it to be, to feel good about myself, to feel confident, to approach people and start conversations with people. And I remember I finally began to sustainably focus on my health when I was in my early 20s. And I had a mentor actually take me under their wing and help me with this. And it changed my entire life. It changed my career. It changed and improved my business. And now in my life, health is my number one priority. And I brought an expert guest today, and he's not just an expert guest, he's a friend of mine, and we come from the same crowd. We've known each other for some months now. His name is David Hernandez, and he is an expert at this thing called health. He has a company, Body by Purpose, and we're going to talk today about why health should be a priority. Specifically, we're going to talk about how you can live a healthy, fun, and purposeful life by focusing on health and creating your own body by purpose. So you know the fee for the broadcast. When you take away any piece of advice or wisdom or tip, please share the show with just one person who could use it the most. We don't run ads. We don't run sponsors. We think they're annoying, and we don't want to interrupt your viewing experience. The only thing we ask is to share the show when you take something away from it. So without further ado, let's talk to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. David Hernandez himself. And for those who don't know David believes that each of us was designed to live a life of purpose. David's mission is to help people learn how to live a healthy, fun, and engaging life without resorting to diets, emotional eating, restrictive meal plans, or depriving themselves of the foods that they love. Because when people learn the right principles, weight release becomes fun and achievable. He's seen it happen time after time and year after year. And he's here on the broadcast to teach us all that he knows in the very short time that we have. David, it's a pleasure to have you here, brother.
Brendan, you're incredible, man. From the moment we met, your energy, just your drive, your passion to just be of influence and affluence in other people's lives is just absolutely outstanding. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure and honor to be on your show, brother.
I appreciate that, dude. And right back at you, because since we met, I think we met at the either the end of last year or very, very beginning of this year. But
yeah,
just right back at you. I mean, your energy for what you do, your passion for what you do, the way that you've helped people, the transformations that you've gotten for people already, the events that you're hosting. I mean, you're out there doing it, man. And I know you've got your event coming up here, the First Leap to Better Health in-person event. I want to dive into that in a bit. But I'm curious, man, when you know, even your email is Body by Purpose, right? Like when you say Body by Purpose, what does that mean to you?
Look, we all have a purpose. And I think each day that we go out and explore, we're in discovery of that purpose. And in that purpose, we have to understand that our body is what helps us get there. If our body is not aligned with our purpose, and if we're not intentionally putting the effort to make sure that our body is aligned to that purpose, at some point or another, we're going to start shying away from the purpose. It's going to start going a different direction, because I firmly believe that our health, right, and our body is bigger than us. Because what I say is that it influences everything that we do. It impacts everything that we do. And look, we have one body and we have one life. So I think that speaks for itself, the importance that we must start focusing and being intentional about these things. So that's why I say it's a body with a purpose, right? And it's designed and created with the purpose. And I believe that when you align those two together, look, we're truly unstoppable, man.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's literally the one thing that we've been given to go through this life is this meat sack. As weird as it sounds, like that's literally
so true.
It's what it is. And if you think about who we are, like we're not our body. Like we are that which is aware of the experience that we are going through. The body is simply the manifested vessel that is
Mhm.
bringing us through this experience, that allows
That's
us
right.
to touch things and feel the experience, that allows us to connect with other people in ways that we wouldn't be able to if we were simply just that being without the body.
Yeah.
Yet we go through our lives, and I didn't look up the stats, but I can only imagine you're probably more well versed in them. But so many people are unhappy with their body. And not even that. I mean, well, that for sure. But so many people don't treat their body, including myself at times, don't treat their
Yeah.
body with the respect that the
That's right.
body requires. And we don't think of our body as this form of antenna that allows us to tune into different frequencies, tune into different emotions and
Yeah.
ways of being. And I didn't even think about any of this as a kid. Like,
Mhm.
I grew up not understanding this, eating whatever I wanted, not understanding the repercussions, until boom, I was this fat kid. And I
Yeah.
thought that that was just how I was meant to be. I remember my grandma used to say to me, even, "Oh, you're not fat, honey. You're just big boned."
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, maybe this is just how I was designed to be. And I
Mm.
remember telling people, oh, I'm just big boned.
Yeah.
And as other kids, they're like, oh, I didn't know that some people were born with bigger bones than others. But
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just the idea of taking care of and cherishing the body and aligning it is so important. When you say aligning it with purpose, like, does purpose come first, or does the body come first, or how do you take the two and align them?
I think they're reciprocal. I think they go in together because our body is what literally gives us the ability to get there, right? Without this body, if we're not able to be healthy enough to wake up, right? If we're not able to be healthy enough to be able to have the proper ability to perform to the place that we want to get to, right? It's going to limit us. It's going to hold us back from tapping into our true potential. Look, we all have potential within us. And I believe that whatever you are chasing after, there is purpose there. And in this pursuit of discovery, our body is what helps us get there, right? It's what gets us up. It's what physically gets us to our location. It's what physically will sustain us in terms of being energized, to being able to do things in life. I have conversations with so many men and women that sadly they can't go out and play with their kids.
Hmm.
And therefore, they're not fulfilling their role as a parent. Their purpose is to be able to live life with their kids. Their purpose is to be able to bring joy to them, to be able to encourage them, to be able to be an example, right? So if we can't physically be at our best, we're not fulfilling our purpose. If today you're an entrepreneur and maybe you're struggling because your body, right, is holding you back, you're not able to do the things that you'd like to do. Well, you're holding back from your potential, which therefore you're not fully achieving your purpose. So we first have to understand what is it, right, that we truly want to go after. What is that purpose? What is that desire of yours? What is that passion? What is that drive that you think about and it just ignites you? It gets you going. And then we have to start asking ourselves a series of questions, right? I'm a firm believer in power of questions. Asking ourselves questions as to, well, is my body aligned with that? If I want to be right a entrepreneur and I want to be traveling, I want to be doing conferences, or I want to be a mother that is there to care for my kids, or a father that is there to be that breadwinner and bring that support to their family, well, are you able to perform that role? Is your body able to hold on to the demand and perform at the level that you currently want to perform at? If not, then we may need to ask some harder questions to really and then start to ensure that our body does then start to align to that purpose.
Yeah, you might have the spirit and
Yeah.
the ambition even to host giant events, or, spend the next 48 hours tightening up the launch of your next product, or
Yeah.
you might want to have that mental clarity to even brainstorm what the next product or the next step or what it is that you want. But it's very difficult to do those things if you
That's right.
reach 1 p.m. and you're out of energy. because many people listening right now are people who are working a full-time job. They
Yeah.
are entrepreneurs. They're building a quote unquote side hustle,
Hmm.
but they get home after work and it's like, well, those hours now between, they got home at 5:30, the hours now between 6 and 10, the only time they have to work on their business is lackluster
Yeah.
because they don't have the energy. And the biggest thing for me, man, like when I was going through that time where I was very unhappy with my body,
Hmm.
it was because of how I felt when I looked at myself in the miror, who
100%.
I saw looking back at me. And I was like, damn, is this who I've let myself become? But
Yeah.
at that point, especially the person who wants to go outside, like the picture that you were just painting, they want to go outside with their family and their children, and they desperately want to, and their mind is so young, their mind is so able, yet their body doesn't allow them to.
Yeah.
And for me, that was very much the case. It's almost as if my body wasn't allowing me to feel good about myself. But I think
Hmm.
the biggest byproduct that I took away, the biggest result that I got out of actually taking control of my fitness
That's right.
was the energy and the
Yeah.
power that came from it. And there's more things that we can do as well to summon this power, not just your body, but that was the ultimate thing that I've shifted. When I meet someone who doesn't have a ton of energy, even now, it's like, yeah, you've got a lot of things going on in your life, but this body is the main thing that is
That's right.
fueling the energy that you possess.
Yeah. Look, it impacts, if you don't like how you look, it's going to impact your mood. It's going to impact the way you talk to yourself, the way you hang around others, right? It's going to influence your self-confidence. It's going to influence your relationships. It's going to impact your relationships with your partner, your relationships with your coworkers. How can you be a great boss if you're unsatisfied with how you feel and look and are in your body? Look, our body is in tune and influences so much more than we think. When I'm not being a health coach, I'm also an actor. And in that, they teach us how to become very connected to our body, because in our body, it holds different things. It holds pains, it holds memories from the past, it holds angers, it holds frustrations. It remembers the moment in that childhood that maybe somebody bullied you, that somebody made fun of you, or that somebody gave you a good compliment. And that is housed in our body. So therefore, if we're not in sync and in tune, right? Not so much even on the health side, just in tune and connected to our body. If you don't like how you look, right? If you don't stand in that mirror and you're not satisfied with what you look, I guarantee you that's going to impact the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you connect with others, the type of money you make. It's going to impact your relationships and your opportunities that you can find in business. It impacts in the bedroom. Let's be real. If you don't like how you look naked, you're
Yeah.
probably not going to be having a lot of intimacy with your partner. And that's a problem, because then that starts to impact your relationship, which then starts to impact your kids, then starts to impact your future. One thing, your body,
Hmm.
right? And then now talking about on the health side of things, that's a whole different ballgame of then what starts to happen with your health, which then becomes detrimental. Look, 84%, okay, of Americans, CNBC put out a study, 84% of Americans said that they confessed that they would overeat, right? And they were unsatisfied with their body. And this is the result of the number one leading cause of non-communicable diseases, right? Which is like cancers and heart problems and kidney failures and all those things, which is causing, and get this, Brandon, it is causing 11 million deaths a year.
Hmm. Wow.
If that does not shock you, then
Is that
I
just in
don't
the
know what
US or
will.
is that
That's just in the US.
wow? Yet we're talking about other things out there, which I won't name right now, that is
Yeah,
also causing a
exactly.
mark in the world. But this is something that I'm surprised CNBC put that out, to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
we're seeing right now all these other dangers and how we can prevent them. But let me tell you the one thing I'm not seeing, man. I'm not seeing hardly any advice from traditional media
Right.
on how to take care of your body. And I
That's
don't
right.
see conversations like these happening in traditional media. It's almost
No.
like you have to go outside, you have to go to the outskirts in order to
Yeah.
hear about these things. But
Almost like the black
this,
market, right? Of like, you
it
can't find things in the
literally,
regular market, you got to go to the black market, but it's sad.
and what's fascinating to me too is and I do the same thing, brother. I remember you sent out a survey months ago asking like, what's the one question that you have when it comes to overeating or binge eating?
Yeah.
Because that's your specialty is really
Yeah.
binge eating, right?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Emotional eating is
Emotional
how
eating,
you phrase
stress
it.
eating, binge eating, boredom eating. Yeah, they're all the same.
Boredom eating.
They
That
just
that is
have
what
a
it
different
is,
name.
man.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how when we're bored or when we're sad or when we're
Mhm.
in some disempowering emotion of any kind,
Yeah.
we resort to food. And it's almost like we punish ourselves for the short term. We punish ourselves for the short term and the long term in order to gain very, very fleeting pleasure and the very fleeting sense of feeling good because you eat the ice cream or
Yeah.
you eat the snack or whatever. Because usually you're not going and grabbing a plate of broccoli or snap
Of
peas,
course
right?
not.
You're grabbing the chips, you're grabbing all the other shit. So like, why is it that we are punishing ourselves in this way when this body is what is the thing that's connecting us to that purpose? It's just it blows my mind.
Well, one of the main principles is not understanding exactly the value of our body, right? And a lot of times it can even be the value of our life and what we're worth. Because if you understood your value and your worth, I promise you, you'd probably take care of it a little bit more, right? So that's the first thing that I've identified to be the case for many when they've been in this place, they've been sitting in this place, in this lifestyle. They've just hated themselves. They have unhealthy eating habits. They have a bad relationship with food, right? They don't understand that value. But now, layer is really understanding what is your relationship with food. Every day in life, we're in relationship. You're in relationship with your partner, you're in relationship with friends, you're in relationship with coworkers, with your boss, you're in relationship with your dog, and you're also in relationship with your food. And each day you are developing this relationship according to how you are interacting with it, right?
Hmm.
How you are developing this relationship is what starts to determine who you will become. This is a very bold statement that I say, but this is the absolute truth. Your relationship today with food is going to dictate who you will become
Wow.
because food influences everything about us. Food literally shapes us physically, right? What you're putting into your body is going to determine your shape. It influence it influences how you think. It impacts your ability to think, your cognitive ability. It impacts your memory. It impacts your energy. It impacts how your organs are going to function. It impacts how your muscles are going to function. It impacts the performance level you're able to give. It impacts everything that you do. So, going back to your question, why is it that we come into these places? Everything about your current relationship with food, you learned it. Meaning that when we're talking about boredom eating, or we're talking about stress eating, we're talking about emotional eating, we're talking about binge eating, the simplest form that I'd like to describe what it is without getting into the scientific part of it, it's just simply learned behavior.
Hmm.
You learned to go to food to deal with your boredom, to deal with your anger, to deal with your stress, to deal with your frustration, to deal with all of your emotions. If today you are dealing with that and you see I'm struggling with this, first off, I want to make this statement here. I want to let all of those that may be listening today, your audience members, know that if they are struggling with it today, I want to tell you there is no shame in that. That is the number one thing I'd like to establish for you. If today you find yourself that in this conversation, you find yourself identified, that's me. When I'm bored, I eat. When I'm stressed, I eat. Look, a lot of times when we're in these struggles, right? We go to ourselves and we start to condemn, we start to judge, we start to shame ourselves. And then we go a step further and start to think that there's a problem with us.
Hmm.
Why? There's got to be a problem with me. Why can't I stop this? Why can't I stop that? Why do I keep doing it? Why? Why? And critical self, right? Which is always looking for a justification as to why you're doing it, ends up pointing the finger at you, the thumb at you, of saying it's your fault, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you can't control your emotions, you have a problem, you're this, you're that. And I want to tell you, you do not have a problem. The simplicity about this is that you have learned how to deal with your emotions in this way. And so, how do we learn that? We learn that from our grandparent. We learn that from a mother. We learn that from a father. We learn that from a best friend that we used to hang around with. We learn that from an environment in an office space, from coworkers, right? We learn that from experiences in life. That is why it is important to be able to look at, well, am I repeating the same pattern that maybe my dad did? Because in our young ages, we are absorbing everything. And one of the methods that we use as children is observing, observational learning, which means we're always looking at things around us and we're learning from them. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you come home from school, you see your mom is sad. She's depressed, she's angry, she had a rough day at school, at work, right? And you see her when she's coming and she's in this state, you see her going and grabbing something from the fridge, sitting down, eating that food and saying, "Ah, oh, I feel better." Or let's say another example that might be even more personal. Let's say you had a bad day. You're 3 years old. Let's say I'm 3-year-old David. I come home from school. My mom is there. She sees that I had a bad day. She asked me, I say, I got in a fight with my best friend. She says, it's going to be okay. Here, have this cookie so that you can feel better. In that moment, we are starting to associate, mom does this when she's angry. That must be the thing to do. Mom gave me this cookie to feel better. I guess that's how I find my joy. I guess that's how I find my happiness when I'm dealing with this situation. Now, here's the catch. When this pattern continues to repeat, right? Again, it happens and it happens again, and you see it again and you see it again. Our brain starts to connect and develop associations with cookie, joy, right? Stress, ice cream, or stress, burger, whatever it is that you have seen. And now, because of neuroplasticity, the more we see it, the more we are doing it, the more we are repeating this behavior, we literally start to change the pathways in our brain. And now it happens automatic. Now, when you're bored, you don't even think about it. You're already with your hands in the chip bag. You're already putting that cookie in your mouth. And then finally, when you snap out of it, you're like, wait, what am I doing? I'm not even hungry. I didn't even want this. And that's because our brain has now literally changed its form. It's changed its pattern. And now this has become your new behavior pattern.
Wow. Let me tell you, man, along those lines, because it 100% stems from childhood, 100%. I think back to some of my earliest memories, and I think back to going to the doctor's office. And if you think like, well, what do they give you at the doctor's office? You're afraid, you're unsure and uncertain of what's going to happen. But there's lollipops, there's snacks, they give you treats. And it's like, oh, there's food here, there's treats here. This must mean that this is a safe place. I'm meant to feel good in this place. I remember going to the grocery store with my parents, and the first place we would go, we would beeline immediately to the bakery, because there was this like tub of cookies that you could literally just, back in the day, you could reach your hand in the tub and grab a cookie. And I remember we would go back and grab a few cookies every time we were there. And I got excited.
How'd that make you feel? That's right. You got excited.
I was excited to go back. And I just, what we do is we get into these patterns. Like what you were saying, I'd get home from school and I'd go to the cupboards, and my mom always stocked junk food. There was always chips, and she still does. Like I still love going to my parents' house like a few times a month that I do, because she's got the Slim Jims and she's got the Funyuns, because she's got grandkids now that she's programming with this crappy food. And I tell her this, and she knows, right? I remember she used to call me on the way home from work, and I would have just gotten home from school, and she'd be like, what do you want from McDonald's today? It's oh, well, what did I get yesterday? You know, and we're thinking like, oh, what can I get now? But for me, it's always been this idea of excess. Let me tell you, man.
Yeah.
I can eat All right. And I'm 200 pounds, right? I used to be 260 pounds. So I've learned to routinize, if that's even the word.
Yeah, yeah.
I've learned to form my day around food in a way. And I still do. I still feel that even now to this day, David, I have an interesting relationship with food. I really, I
Mhm.
look forward to food. I absolutely
Yeah,
love it. I'm a foodie, right? So I love all different kinds,
of
but
course.
I almost in a way still even do treat myself with food.
Mhm.
But I've gotten very smart about how I treat myself with food. Like now
Yeah,
I do vegan meal planning. I'm not vegan
awesome.
by any means. I'm probably
Yeah,
like 80% vegan, and then one night a week we'll have meat. So I don't
yeah,
ever say that, but I
right.
eat that food because it makes me feel good after I eat it. But for
Of course.
me, it's always been excess. Like
Mm,
I cannot get a bag of salt and vinegar chips, the big ones, and not go through the entire bag.
yeah,
Like you said, I'm not hungry,
yeah,
but I'm just eating the entire bag of chips. So for me, I know myself enough to realize if I'm going to do something like that for me, I have to get the small bag or
that's
I've
right.
got to get the snack sized one or I just know myself enough. So I think a big part of it is also knowing yourself.
Yeah.
But like you said, it goes back to that programming. I mean, for you, did you have to overcome any of that programming for yourself? Like, where did this journey even begin for you? Why are you doing what you do today?
Well, if I can add to that, because you touched on some very important points, right? And then I'll
Yeah.
answer that. It has started to develop your relationship with food. As she did that, right? As mom did that, you now started to develop these direct relationships with these types of foods. And now you've started to shape your relationship in this way with your food, your body, your health. Now, it is important to understand why, right? This is so critical because it's all about our own psychology of food. How
Hmm.
do you view food? What is food to you, right? When you talk about food, like what does it really mean to you? When we don't understand these things, right, it's very easy to fall into these quote unquote traps and allow food to dictate how our relationship should be and how our life should be. Now, the overeating, right, starts to happen because when we eat, and we eat typically this junk food, right? Or we're eating anything that is processed, that turns into sugar quickly. Anything that is sugar is going to turn into sugar quickly, right? It starts to activate our reward system in our brain, which
Mm,
is dopamine. The more that is triggered, our brain, right, needs glucose and it runs off of glucose, meaning sugar. So if we're spending a lot of time eating this junk food, we are literally feeding our brain sugar and it thrives on glucose. So the more we're giving it sugar, processed foods, junk food, chips, right, fries, french fries, hamburgers, all that stuff, it's literally on a high all the time. So it's saying, I want more, I want more, I want more, I want more. Now, what happens? The more we give it, our tolerance level for that starts to go higher. It goes higher. It goes higher. Now, what before used to be 2 Oreos that would give you that high and would make you feel good now becomes 4. Now becomes half of the cart. Now becomes the entire cart. Now you need a whole cart of Oreos and some ice cream, right? Because now the tolerance level for that joy and excitement, that hit of dopamine is no longer there. You need to give it more.
mm,
And so the more we give it, our body now also starts to lose our ability to understand and know when I'm actually full, because now it's lost that ability because it's always being fed, it's always given so much sugar, which is causing our insulin to spike, which is then causing our bloodstream to go all over the place, right? Now that indicator that is in our brain that sends a signal to your body, okay, stop, you're full, no longer exists. You start to lose it, which then now overeating becomes so routinely and it becomes so easy. And I look, now going back to your question, I saw this happen in my childhood best friend. Growing up, he was, I would say, with all due respect, very similar to you,
mhm,
right? He was the husky kid, he was the fat kid, he struggled to fit in, right? He was insecure with himself. He tried to do everything he could to fit in, but it just wouldn't work. Because of that, he was also developing higher levels of estrogen in his body, which was causing him to have a lower sagging chest, pec muscles, right? And
That's
the
what that
actual,
is, huh? That's
yeah,
estrogen
that's estrogen. Yeah, you're now
from food?
developing, yeah, because
Interesting.
again, it changes the regulation of everything in your body. Your
Wow.
hormone level go out of whack. Everything starts to get off alignment. And so they used to make fun of him, right? They used to call him names. And so he struggled in that. And sadly, at the age of 21, he got so obese and he was so desperate to get the weight off that he went and got a gastric bypass surgery. 2 days later, he got an infection and he died,
Oh my
right?
god.
And in that whole process leading up to that, growing up, like, I saw him struggle with this, Brandon. I saw him struggling and, like, just, like, fighting, wanting to change this, but he did not know how. Because he'd go home, this was what was there. He had childhood trauma growing up, right? His father left him. He didn't know who he was. His mother was never there. She was always on the streets doing her thing. She gave him over. She gave him over to grandmother, and grandmother raised him. His grandfather was like a really hard military man and just was an alcoholic and was just very mean to them. So he was raised in this dysfunctional home. And then on top of that, he started to develop a lot of anxiety. And so there were all of these foods around for him to kind of find comfort. And this is where that word comfort food comes from, right? Because oh my gosh, it makes me feel better. It's spiking my dopamine level. It's bringing joy. It's bringing this certain comfort in my body. And so he did all of that, and to the point where he lost control of his life. He lost control of his health. He lost control of his body,
Yeah.
and he died. And so our childhood, our life influences on who and what we start to become. But those around us influence how we start to deal with those problems,
Hmm.
how we
Sure.
handle that stress, how we handle that that trauma, how we handle your stress, how we handle all of our emotions. And in that, I was gracious enough to be born in a family that my dad was always in some shape or form into fitness,
Hmm.
right? He'd always try to be active, he'd always try to do things. But however, from a young age, I got this like really amazing desire to want to play sports. So again, that passion, right? Or that purpose that I wanted to be an athlete, because I was the skinny kid. I was the total opposite. I was the skinny kid. Nobody wanted to be around me because they didn't think I was going to be good. Oh, he's not fast enough. He's not good enough. He's too skinny. He's too fragile. He's going to break, right? But I started playing football at the age of 8 for that reason. Everything that everyone said you weren't going to do, I said, I'm going to go and do it. I'm gonna go and prove that I can do this. And for a moment, it was to try and please others and yeah, shut them up.
Yeah.
But I found so much joy in that. And I started to seek out, well, what is it? How can I perform at a higher level? Oh, I got to eat better. Okay, what does that look like? Oh, okay, it's this food, it's that food. Then I got into the bodybuilding magazines. My brother was also involved into weightlifting, and I saw how his body changed. And he was a super skinny kid too. He now had some amazing muscles. I'm like, oh, I want to do the same thing. So what would he do? Oh, he did this, he did that, he eats these meals, he does the eggs this way, the egg whites to this, to that. So then that started to encourage me. Then he gave me a book. I'll never forget this book. It was called Body for Life. And in that book, he gave it to me for Christmas. And it talked about how to start developing this lifestyle of better health and better performance,
Do you
because
still
I was
recommend that
interested
book
in
to
that.
people?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's probably one of the best things that you could start to read. Now, there might be some information that might be outdated in terms of like the ideology of like how we should eat, how many meals we should eat, and all that stuff. But the basis, the foundation, fantastic. Bill Phillips is the name of that author.
Okay.
Fantastic guy. And a lot of people got a lot of results from that. So I was really excited about that. But you see, I had to put forth the effort. I had to start to figure it out, but I had to make first a conscious choice. Who do I want to be? Who
Hmm.
did I want to be at that age?
You made that conscious choice at that age.
Conscious choice of wanting to be an athlete. And from there, I said, well, if I want to be able to play sports, then I got to take care of my body. And that means that what goes in our mouth is going to influence that. And so
Yeah.
then I heard, as I grew older, I heard another bodybuilder say that just stuck with me. Sadiq Hazovic, I think's his name. Anyways, I probably butchered his name, but anyways, he said, "I don't eat for pleasure. I eat for performance." Boom! It hit me. I said, "That's it." If we don't understand what food is, what was food intended for? Food wasn't intended to bring us like joy. Food
Mhm.
wasn't intended to bring us happiness. Food wasn't intended to give us a certain physical satisfaction. Food wasn't intended for that. Now, it does give us that,
Mhm.
right? But it was intended to give us nutrients, to keep us alive, right? To help us perform. And it's so crazy how something was created to give us life today is actually taking life away.
Wow. That's the line of the century right there. I mean, if you think about even primally why food makes us feel good, it's not so that we can simply just feel good. It's because it's telling us, congratulations, you did well. You found food.
Yeah.
You're now able to survive another day. And that good feeling will encourage you to go out there and find and
Do it
hunt
again.
for
That's
more
right.
food and
That's right.
grow and whatever it is you're doing. But it wasn't meant to feel as good just to feel good. But now, I mean, dude, I can go on DoorDash right now and I can have
Anything you
food at
want.
my door by the time this discussion's over.
That's
I
right.
can have food at the door and
That's
I
right.
can choose to eat however I want to eat. Like, dude, let me tell you. And listen, for anyone listening who does what I'm about to say, this is no judgment towards you. No judgment at
None.
all. You might be very
Yeah.
happy with your eating habits. You might be happy with where you're at. Everyone's different, right? But I drive by fast food restaurants at like 9, 10 in the morning, on the way
Yeah.
to work or whatever I'm doing. And I just see people eating these massive breakfast sandwiches. And I'm like,
Mhm.
dude, if I ate that breakfast sandwich right now, that's going to knock me out for the rest of my day.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
yesterday, Easter, my wife brought home Dunkin' Donuts and she brought home this bacon, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich with hash browns. And it was amazing. I don't normally eat breakfast. I normally
Yeah.
eat my first meal afternoon, and I usually
Right.
stop eating at 8, intermittent fasting, right?
Yeah.
And if I eat a meal in the morning now, I'm out for like the next few hours. I get heartburn.
Yep.
I feel like bleh. Like people wonder why they're eating these giant meals at the
Yeah.
beginning of the day and they wonder why they're low energy for the whole day. And
That's
it's
right.
like, well, look at what you just fueled your body with. As
That's
soon
right.
as you woke up, your body's digesting that massive meal. And the amount of incorrect information that's out
Mhm.
there is mind blowing. People, whoa,
Yeah.
it's the most important meal of the day,
No, it's
breakfast.
not.
And it's like, who
No, it's
told
not.
you that? The cereal box at the store? Like, yeah, because they want to sell you their product. That's like going to a butcher and asking for a meal plan and being surprised when he writes down meat.
That's
Right?
right.
Like
Yeah.
you got to find the information. You got to educate yourself. I remember and with your friend. So first, I'm sorry for your loss. I can only
Yeah.
imagine
Thanks, man.
how difficult that was, and I can only imagine how difficult it was for him because it was similar for me in the fact that I wanted that quick fix, the
Yeah.
allure of the overnight transformation. I remember when I first got my phone, I was 15 and it was an iPhone, and it was I think Facebook. Yeah, Facebook was definitely out. It was definitely an application. I remember I saw an ad on my Facebook at 15 years old, dude. 15.
Wow.
I saw an ad for Garcinia Cambogia. All right.
Wow.
It was like, those little weight loss pills. And this was
Yeah.
before they were in GNC. This was before thermogenics were a thing and used. And I ordered it and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I need. And I remember it was strange. I think it was really more placebo than anything, but I actually lost a lot of weight in my junior to senior year of high school because of these pills. And I accredited everything to them. And I gained it back after about a year and a half. And I
Of
was
course.
like, the thing is that quick fix was good temporarily,
Yeah.
but who I was, I still thought I was a fat person. I
Mhm.
still felt fat. I still was self-conscious. I was still lacking confidence. So we go for these quick fixes,
Yeah.
or we go for the gastric bypass, or we go for these things. I know so many people, dude, personally,
Yeah.
I had two come to mind who got gastric bypass, but they are still unhappy with their body.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so sad to see it. Like,
Yeah.
let me ask you this question. If you had a person come up to you and say, Dave, I want to get gastric bypass because I'm not happy with my body or the way that I feel. And I think that this is the only way for me to get there. What advice would you have for this individual if they asked you about the quick fix? What would you say to them?
Well, first, I think we have to be empathetic and also respect people's choices where they're at, right? And meet them where they're at, and really try to get them to answer why they want it, and get them to understand, like, what is the for themselves. Get them to understand what is the real reason why you want to do this. Because here's the thing: all of those things work. Diets work, pills work, surgeries work, all of those things work. However, they're temporary, because if we don't get to the root cause of what has got you where you're at today, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to go right back. Why? Because of behavior patterns and because of neuroplasticity, right? Because of what you've done every single day has got you where you're at, and we are not identifying that root cause. We are not focusing on looking at, well, what is triggering you to get there? What has got you there in the first place? Identifying all of these things, you're going to go right back to what you know. You're going to go right back to what you've always done. You're going to go right back to what seems comfortable. Why? Because that is one of the areas that you can control. When we go back and we look at my best friend, why would he go to food? And why do most people go to food? Because maybe they're living a how life. Maybe they're in such a destructive place. They've had a destructive childhood. They've lived in dysfunctional homes. There might be struggling financially. They might have marital issues and all this stuff. They go to food because that is the one thing they feel that they can control.
Mm,
I can control this because I can control what goes in my mouth, and I can control how I feel. So that is why that pattern is done, right? But going back to your original question, is those that want to seek that, look, it's a temporary fix.
hmm.
It's not going to solve your struggle, because the struggle, your problem, is not a physical outer problem. It is a psychological problem, and it is an emotional problem that is not being handled the right way, which is then influencing your identity, your lifestyle, and your actions. I'm going to say that again. The things that you're struggling with today, it's a psychological struggle problem and an emotional problem. And if we do not handle those things correctly, it is going to impact our identity, which is going to impact our actions, and it's going to impact like how we perform, right?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this because it goes based off of everything that you just said. How does one then begin to change the relationship that they have with food?
Great question. Identifying how did your relationship in what you're doing today start? So, for example, let's say you're going to sugar all the time, right? Let's say we're doing that. Well, one of the questions I put together a discovery workbook, one of the first questions is, can you identify when this first started? It could be, oh, yeah, I remember when my grandmother came and brought me the cookie, right? Oh, yeah, I can remember every time after school I was I would go to McDonald's. My dad would take me to McDonald's. We have to identify, when did this start? What is the root? What is the place that you can remember when this started? Because I promise you, all of your struggles today stems back from your childhood and things that were embedded and created from your childhood. So if we can then identify where it came from, right, then we can start to identify, well, what does this particular thing mean to me? Everything that we do has a meaning, whether it's a good meaning or a bad meaning. Jenna, one of my students, she came to me and she was like, I don't know why when I'm stressed or I'm feeling and chocolate. I don't know why. I don't know why. We went through my 4-step process to identify all these things. And we found out that that chocolate reminded her of her grandmother. Her grandmother was the one that would love on her and give her comfort when she had low self-esteem and when she was stressed. After her grandmother would love on her, she would give her a piece of chocolate.
Wow.
2 years ago, her grandmother died. So she could no longer call her and say, hey, grandma, I need some help. I need some comfort. So what was her association to her grandmother? Chocolate.
Yeah.
Did she want chocolate? No. What was she wanting? Love and comfort from the source that she would get it from, right? So the meaning of chocolate was love, comfort, support, encouragement, feel good.
Hmm.
That's why I say, when we're identifying where it comes from, well, what does that piece of chocolate today mean to you? What does going to McDonald's mean to you? What memories come up? What things come up? Where do you feel it in your body? So the reason we start with questions is to start developing awareness. We have to know how we operate, how we function, who we are as humans. We live this life on earth in this body, and half the time we don't even know who we are. We don't know what triggers us. We don't know what brings us joy. We don't know what makes us angry. We don't know a lot of things about us. So it's important to develop this awareness. So it's identifying, where does this come from? Identifying what is the root cause of this, because then I promise you, the things that get you angry or the things that get you emotional that lead you to food is the exact same thing, but in a different way, what happened in your childhood.
Wow. It's just so crazy how deep this stuff goes, and
It goes deep, brother.
it's important
And
to go deep because that's how you create
you
the
have
lasting
to.
change.
That's the only way. And the only way to be able to change this behavior is by going deep and going deep and going deep without judgment, without shame, and without criticism. Because a lot of times through this journey and this process, many people start to criticize themselves. They start to judge themselves. They start to shame themselves. However, what I have found is that when you identify where this comes from and you identify the source that it stems from, it literally starts to take shame away, because then you start to say, oh, it wasn't my fault. Crap.
Yeah. And for someone listening too who is in a similar situation as myself, or your own unique variant of that, you can begin to create new associations with
Totally.
new foods. Like, I
That's right.
remember I was talking to my wife the other night, actually. Do you remember, I think they're still on the shelves, but I haven't eaten one in a long time, but do you remember the Halo Top ice
Oh,
cream?
yeah, dude.
Dude,
Absolutely.
like,
Absolutely.
I remember
Yeah.
we used to go to Hannaford, and during the time when I released all that weight and felt really good about myself, and during the beginning of that transformation, I associated health to those things.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm sure if you put the thing through you dissected all the ingredients, it's probably still not too great for you.
Yeah.
But compared to what I was eating before that, I was eating
Oh,
just
it's a lot better.
normal ice
Yeah.
cream like 4
Right.
nights a week, maybe 5 nights a week. So I went to those and I immediately felt better about myself. And I said to Bree, my wife, I was like, you remember those Halo Tops? And she just, a big smile came across her face and she's like, yeah. And I was like, it's funny how you just smiled, because we associate that time of our life with that specific food. And for
Yeah.
me, another one is berries. I started to eat a lot of raspberries, started to eat a lot of
Yeah.
blueberries. So now when I'm
Awesome.
eating blueberries and raspberries, it's almost like the meaning of those foods is health. It's
That's right.
fuel. When I eat
That's
my
right.
meals now, it's about fuel, it's about health. And then, one or maybe 2 nights a week, we'll have a big meal with some things that remind me of the past, but
Yeah,
I allow that for myself.
that's
So for
right.
the person listening, you can change.
Yeah,
You have control of the way that you look. You can change the way that you look, and
that's right.
by changing the way you look, you can change the way that you feel. And
Mhm.
like what you said, it all starts with that awareness. And I know you help people in many different capacities, but I am fascinated by your event coming up, the First Leap to Better Health. And can you tell us a bit about like what is going to be happening at this event, what people can expect to get out of it? Like, talk to me about your event coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one, man. It's coming up June 10th and 11th. We're going to be doing an in-person event here in Winter Haven, Florida. So if anybody listening is in Florida or close to this area, come out. It will be incredible. Or if you're out of state, you can also listen virtually. So one thing that we have to know is that emotional eating is learned behavior, right? We said that, which means that if it's learned, we can unlearn it, or meaning we can, in the process of us getting out of this behavior, we can start to learn a new behavior, which means that our neural pathways, right, can start to change. So they describe it, and Carol Dweck's describes this very amazingly on her book, The Growth Mindset. She describes it as a jungle or as a forest, which has different paths, right? And there's a path that is cleared out, straight path, you can walk through it, and that is typically the path that you are in today with this behavior, right? Emotions, food, emotions, food. So that path in your brain is like cleaned out, it happens automatic. And there's a lot of other space in the area, right, that you can start to create new pathways. And so what we do is, in this behavior pattern that we start to change, we literally start to design a different path. So now, instead of it going to food, now it's going to go, let's say, to exercise. It's going to go to walking. It's going to go to music. It's going to go to adventures. It's going to go to punching a bag. It's going to go to whatever it is that we create as that new behavior. And now that path that is filled with bushes and trees and branches and a bunch of crap on the road slowly starts to now be cleaned up and cleaned up and cleaned up. The more we perform this behavior, it starts to open up more. It starts to open up more. It starts to open until eventually it becomes just like this old one. It now creates a new one, and this old one now becomes deserted, right? And so in this First Leap to Better Health, we're going to be focusing specifically on emotional eating, stress eating, binge eating, boredom eating, right? And we're going to be identifying why. Why do I keep doing this even though I don't want to? We're going to identify the root cause. We're going to identify what is triggering this for you. I'm going to be teaching you about how behavior works. I'm going to be teaching you about how neuroplasticity works and how your food is literally being impacted by all these things. And then I'm going to go deeper and teach you my 4-step process that I use with my students, that I usually charge thousands of dollars for, to teach them this process. I'm going to break it all down so that you can understand how to identify the root cause, identify your triggers, identify your physical and emotional responses, that awareness, right? Being in tune with our body, with our emotions. Then I'm going to teach you exactly how to identify what it is that you're coping with. And then the last piece is I'm going to teach you how to discover the power in declarations that is going to help us rewire our brain together with new action plans and action steps that we're going to take so that you can literally put an end. And I promise you, this is real. You can literally put an end to emotional eating. You can put an end to your stress eating. You can put an end to binge eating. You can put an end to it and never do it again. And that's how powerful this First Leap to Better Health event conference is going to be. It's a 2-day conference. It is, I mean, very, very, very minimal cost for you to invest, because I believe that it's important to invest in ourselves. When we invest in ourselves is when we can really absorb that transformation. So you can find all that information on my website, firstleaptobetterhealth.com.
Oh man, I can't wait to hear about this event, how it goes for the people who are there. I mean, I wish that this was something that I had access to when I
Mm,
started this journey because I would have been there, but there
yeah,
aren't enough people out there talking about what we're talking about right now when it comes to health and really taking control of how you want to feel, right?
yeah,
Creating a body by purpose, aligning it
that's
with
right.
that purpose. So,
That's right.
everyone listening, the link to check out the First Sleep to Better Health event is in the comments. If you're watching it live, it's in the description if you're watching it afterwards. And again, you can be there virtually. So, you don't need to get the plane ticket. But I mean,
Yeah,
plane tickets right now are still pretty inexpensive to go down to
yeah.
Florida. So,
Oh
it's
yeah.
in Florida, but you can get your virtual ticket. And you're going to go through this journey of transformation with the David Hernandez himself, the man, the myth, the legend. David, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, brother. And I'm glad that
Hey,
we were able to
pleasure.
make this happen. Thanks for
Yeah, man.
diving deep into this wisdom.
It took us a couple months to get here, but we got it. It was fantastic. I love your show, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're impacting, empowering so many people. Look, you're impacting my business. I always come to you with questions. I come to you. I would say you're a mentor of mine in this discovery of becoming better business individuals and just to grow and be able to impact more people. So thank you for what you're doing. Keep doing it. Keep crushing it. And thanks for the invite. I hope to be
Thanks so
back
much,
at some
brother. It's
point.
an honor to help you any way I can, and you've helped me as well. So I appreciate you, and I look forward to see where you go from here, my friend.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
brother. You have a good one.
If you're ready to carve a new path through the jungle, to create new neuro associations for your body, for your health, for how you feel, for the achievements that you create for yourself personally and in your business and with your family and in every other aspect of your life, then you need to check out the First Sleep to Better Health. The event is happening on June 10th and June 11th. You can grab your virtual or your in-person ticket at the link below, because in this conversation with Dave, we jumped into so many different areas and facets of health and how you can live a purposeful life and how you can align your body with your purpose. So if you took anything out of this conversation, all that we ask is to share this show with just one person who could use it. Let's spread the word. Let's help more people to be better. Let's help more people to create an extraordinary life. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And as always, until we talk again next time, continue to be better.